Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our SAUG webinar. Thanks to all our members who've joined in such good numbers, and I hope everyone is well. Thanks to IQX Business Solutions for their ongoing support of SAUG and for making this session possible. Today, we'll be looking at capital budgeting, forecasting, and project selection. Obviously, we'll go into a lot more detail about those topics. Before we start, just a few bits of information. This session is being recorded. The recording and a copy of the presentation will be made available on the SAUG website shortly, and we'll notify everyone when it's ready. Everyone is on mute, but you can ask questions at any time using the question function on the right of your screen, and we'll go through questions at the end. There'll also be contact details on the slide, so if you'd like to ask any questions in the future, you can email the presenters directly, or you can even contact us. We also welcome your feedback as always. So if today's topic makes you think of other topic areas that you'd like to see, please also let us know in the questions section. Now, I'd like to introduce our presenter for today. It's Richard Frickberg, someone who's no stranger to our sessions. It's Richard Frickberg, who's the CEO of IQX Business Solutions. Thanks, Richard.
Thanks very much, Michael, and thanks everyone for your time this morning. Very excited to be talking about my favorite topic. In terms of agenda, what we aim to go through today is a brief introduction of the CapEx process. Look at the current state of play, where we're at in terms of adoption of tools and technologies, and some of the pain points experienced by many customers. Look at some of the available alternatives to solving the problem, including the SAP tools, and what we're really going to focus on today a little bit is a SaaS tool for that front-end loading part of the business process. Look at some of the business benefits of digitalization and talk about some next steps. So when we think about CapEx and capital projects in SAP, I think the first thing that comes to mind for many people is the old CapEx request form. And I think I just want to redefine the CapEx process and capital projects in general by saying that the process really starts with an idea. It's someone has a need or a want. Typically, these ideas are classified into two main groups: replace existing capital, plant, and equipment, or introduce new growth, capital, and savings initiatives. Those initiatives then normally get submitted as part of a capital budgeting exercise, often in a wish list that through some method is ranked and prioritized, and a line is drawn, and the items above the line become included in our capital budget for 2025. That budget is subject to capacity constraints, primarily financial, but also increasingly resourcing. There's only so much we can do successfully. Some of the challenges, of course, with budgeting is we do it a year in advance, and if only our world was that predictable, and often there's changes required along the way. So between the budget and the actual projects that we kick off, there's typically a business case phase where we can link a more detailed justification of the capital project and its identified value in terms of key financial metrics like internal rate of return or payback period or ideally net present value for approval. In our ideal world, most of our business cases were budgeted, but in our world, a lot of those business cases might actually be unbudgeted, but urgent initiatives as a result of a changing business environment. Now we get into the world we're familiar with. It's the project execution. At this point, once the business case is approved, we typically create our projects in SAP, commence our procurement activities, onboard suppliers, receipt goods and timesheets, and then start reporting actual costs and our forecast expenditure, so we can see how our CapEx projects are progressing. Towards the end of the project, we start to think about capitalization, how we're going to close off the projects, stop the accumulation of costs, define the actual target fixed assets, and settle the capital costs to those fixed assets appropriately. And subsequently do a review and learn from the experience. What did we get right? What did we get wrong? And how do we make it better the next time around? When we look, at the process defined more broadly around capital projects, and we think about the ability to influence and the cost to change the outcome, the curves look something like this. It's easy to change your mind before you start building, yeah, and by the time it comes to the end, it's too late. And if we want to, avoid that buyer's regret and wish we'd done it differently, the time to, improve that process is early on. From a tools point of view, I think everyone on this call is part of the SAP community, so hopefully we're all using SAP to actually do our at least project accounting, capture those costs and raise the commitments and track our fixed assets. But even in those activities around project creation or asset valuation, we still have a variety of tools that we apply to gather that information from the engineers and the people responsible for running those projects. And still some of those really interaction with the end users is not fully within our SAP technology stack, and we do rely on email, and we rely on a bunch of other supporting tools, and particularly at the front end of this process. So despite the fact that SAP was sold to customers in the 90s, and I was part of that first project in 95 for BMW, the justification was we're going to replace all those spreadsheets in the organization with this thing called SAP. It's an ERP system. It's all about enterprise resource planning, and the most important planning cycle you do is how you're going to spend your capital budget effectively. And yet, 20 years later, we still see many customers still doing their Excel spreadsheet-based processes for this most critical, planning cycle about where to invest our scarce time and money. So one of the things we just wanted to do was take the pulse of the nation and just see how many of us have actually rolled out SAP solutions into this front-end loading phase of capital projects, and see what kind of problems we're experiencing there. So I've asked Michael just to use some of our webinar technology and try and launch a little poll, and hopefully that works. Yep. So the question is really, thanks Michael, I see that coming up. Thinking about your kind of end-to-end capital project process, how many of you are actually actively using SAP technology solution for some of that upfront ideation and wish listing of new initiatives for next year's budget? How many of you do that in SAP technology today? How many of you do the actual selection of those submissions and the reselection, reprioritization, and capital budgeting and resource leveling planning in SAP today? How many of you do the business case, financial analysis, the calculation of your net present value, your payback period using SAP technology? How many of you do the approval of those business cases using SAP workflow today? When it comes to project accounting, hopefully everyone says, yes, we do project accounting in SAP. Well, that's where our actuals are. That's our single source for accounting. Hopefully we're doing most of our procurement through Ariba or SAP purchase orders using SAP technologies today, but not everyone is. There's still a number of customers who adopting different procurement solutions, but let's get a sense of our attendees where we're at today with SAP technologies in that area. And then finally, when it comes to presenting your capital forecasts to your execs, collecting those forecasts and producing meaningful stats, how many of you are using SAP, whether it's SAP Analytics Cloud or BW or business objects or ERP basic for that process? Can we get a sense of who's using SAP technologies there today?
Yeah.
So
Richard, I've got a few results. I'm not sure if I can get it onto the screen, but what I can really I can tell you, the one that's standing right out is project accounting and procurement. So about 83% of people have said that, and then we've got 40% of people saying forecasting and analytics, and then business case preparation and approval 27%. Project selection and budgeting 23%, and ideas and proposals 13%. So it's been sort of fairly consistent around those. Thanks to everyone who's is that what you expected? Richard?
Yeah, that's kind of that's what we're seeing. So it's the early stages are less supported. The project accountant, that's the core piece, that's the main support, and increasingly, I think we're adopting the analytics tools at the back end
Sure.
to do that. So that resonates. And then if we're not using SAP today, maybe just the next one, Michael, if you can
Yeah.
switch to the next poll. What alternatives are you using to close that gap for that front end loading? So we see, Excel prevalent. We've got, customers who used, Excel for billion-dollar capex programs. So don't be afraid if Excel is your main tool of choice. It's still an excellent tool, and it has its place in every capital budgeting cycle. So we would be crazy to stand here and say, don't use Excel, but let's understand if we are using it, whether we're using generic collaboration tools. We used to see a lot of Lotus Notes. I think that's all gone now, but still, a lot of that has shifted to SharePoint as another kind of generic collaboration workflow tool. So people are adopting the workflow tools they have to solve this capital planning problem. Are you using, an extended project management solution? So if you have consistent, and a lot of organizations don't, but if you have a consistent way of managing your capital projects outside of SAP, or have you extended that platform, whether it's your Primavera or Microsoft Project Online, project management tools into the space? Has anyone adopted a specialized third-party portfolio management solution today? And who's using the third-party analytic tools? We see a lot of Power BI in the market. Is that something that you're using to plug your reporting and planning and maybe forecasting tools? So just get a sense of where the attendees are today. How does that stacking up there, Michael?
Yeah, well, I'm probably not surprised, but Excel, about 90% of people saying that they're using Excel, and that doesn't even surprise me. But for the others, about 52% are using third-party analytic tools, the Power BIs or others. And then the next one, 48% generic collaboration, so your SharePoints. Close behind is 40% people using extended project management, so that's Project Online or tools like that. And then we have about 23% who are using specialized portfolio management. So anything surprising there apart from the Excel?
No, I think that reflects my experience. So yeah, Excel, is king in the space, and I guess the challenge for us is how do we use Excel, most effectively. Yeah. So let's get into that. If you can return me, Michael, I'll just.
There we go.
Right. So I guess the key people to ask in this is, the end users, and there's kind of three primary groups we think about: the project managers or the engineers who are really the responsible people for getting it done right. They're really keen about ensuring the continuation of their facilities, maintaining it in due course. So they're very keen stakeholders in getting their pet projects, off the ground. Area managers are kind of the departmental heads, looking after, maybe a plant or a business unit. They're really interested in picking the right projects, so doing the right things. And they've got a lot of project managers and engineers saying they all need money next year, and they've got to make some prioritization decisions. The exec sponsors are the highest level of these capital projects. They're really looking at the final outcomes from a strategic perspective. So if we're picking the right projects, are we going in the right direction? And some of their challenges, I guess, these days are the quadruple bottom lines. It's not just all financial metrics that are guiding organizations. They're increasingly concerned about their ESG credentials, making sure that they're doing the right things by the environment and their community, and that they're maintaining the highest levels of security and governance over their business processes. So they have kind of new and emerging strategic initiatives that they're trying to fulfill, whereas the area managers are going for productivity of their area, and project managers delivering the outcomes at a tactical level. Now, if we ask them about what their problems are with kind of a diversity of tools being applied to this critical business process, we've got a few different responses from these different user groups. I think from the responsible people, it's really about usability, making it easy to submit a CapEx request, complete the business cases, being able to have real good transparency over that approval cycle and follow up when necessary. And I guess just have that sense of fairness and transparency in around where that line gets drawn. Yeah, everyone feels aggrieved that their project didn't make the cut for next year's budget. So the more transparent that selection and scoring process is, the happier they are. From the area manager's point of view, we've heard some of their challenges are, there's lots of demand and only a few of us, and limited funding every year. It seems to be less, or we can maybe buy less with it, given the rate of inflation. So they've got this prioritization challenge, and looking to make the right choices. They're also, having to deal with, delayed delivery. Yeah, so everyone's promising great, growth or savings outcomes from their capital projects, and when those projects run late or run over budget, some of those promises, don't come to fruition. So they really want that visibility over how we're tracking. Everyone kind of wants to hang on to their allocated budget, even though it's clear that they're never going to spend it, right? So one of the main problems we're seeing is not overspend in total of the budget, but it's almost underspend in time. So the schedules are extending into next year, and if only we knew that early, we could bring forward some of those other great initiatives that are ready to run today. But getting that information back from the operation of these projects is sometimes a challenge. But because of those changing environments, they do need that ultimate agility and flexibility to keep refining that mix. And our annual budgeting cycles that are slow and laborious don't really meet our need for that flexibility. So if we can accelerate that whole planning and ranking and prioritization and reprioritization process, the hypothesis is we'll get more value, out of our project portfolio. And from that exec sponsor's point of view, it's all about the impact. These folk are typically incentivized on growth and profitability targets. So they're really keen for those benefits that come from the project. So yes, whilst the area managers are, have their cost center reports, the exec sponsors are really looking at the profit center view of it, and what will this mean in terms of short-term pain and cost versus long-term, return on investment. And the more successful the organization becomes, the harder it is to retain that same rate of growth. And it requires constant, innovation and upgrading of technology and infrastructure to meet, the competitive demands to meet those growth ambitions, growth and profitability ambitions. And their main fear is, am I missing out? Yeah, are we so stuck in to a sustenance capital budget where we know the number already because, we're just going to replace the stuff we already have, and are not spending enough on radical new innovation? And where does that innovation arise? And it's not only from the board. The innovation can come from anyone in the whole organization, as a better idea of doing something, is closer to the market, close to the customers, close to the new technologies. And those ideas do need to bubble up because they might be the next great thing that'll take the organization forward. So if we think, and last poll, Michael, just to get a sense, make everyone work a little bit this morning. If you think about your environment and some of those challenges, and I guess into major categories of how could we improve our capital project process with digitalization effectively, what aims would we be seeking to solve? Is it the inefficiency of the process? Are we frustrated by the number of times we have to type this information into Excel and need to bring it into SAP, sometimes with rekeying again, only to get it out of SAP and put it back into spreadsheets and do reports? Is it that inefficiency of manipulating that data? Is it the timeliness of the approvals or the reporting because of the hobbling together of these different tools? Is it the ease of use, the consistency of experience? Sometimes it's a spreadsheet, sometimes it's a SharePoint form, sometimes it's an SAP transaction. Does it require a lot of training to get, and often it's occasional users familiar with, how to raise a request and how to track it. Is it the problem in your organization really that we think we're getting it wrong? We're picking the wrong projects. There's other stuff we should have been doing. Everyone's complaining that, done management, why didn't they, give me the money? I could have used it better. Or is it, the quality of the analysis? Is that really where the pain is, that the execs are saying, look, this CapEx forecast is always wrong, or we know it's misleading, it's inconsistent. People, terrible at forecasting, and the report's always late, and that the inconsistency and delay in the reporting is really impacting our ability to control and de-risk the whole capital projects process. Where do we see the pains primarily today in the community?
Yeah, we've got about 75% of people saying it's inefficiency of the process, and then followed by 44% ease of use, and it's been consistent around that. Closely behind is the third one is 38% of people saying quality of reports, and then we've got 34% prioritization and optimization, 34%. And the last one is delays in approval, so 23%. Is that consistent with what you've been seeing, Richard?
Yeah, that's good. I mean, it sounds like, I think COVID really helped automate the approval process. I think a few years ago, the workflow was a bigger pain point, but we've had to automate the workflow. But we are addressing that workflow challenge by, bringing in, I guess, these specialist SharePoint or other workflow tools, but it hasn't aided that inefficiency, and that quality of reporting, because it's now just another system handling the approval, but we still got to get it in and out of those systems and into a single source of truth.
Yeah,
all right, well,
Richard, before, sorry, normally I'd keep questions to the end, but a question just came from the audience related to the three roles that you were showing. So I thought I'd just ask this question while you're still, you remember those. And the question was, who in the three roles that you just showed deals with ideas and proposals?
Well, I think it's an interesting question, and often there isn't a formalized process and someone responsible for managing that, and it's kind of seen as a standalone process. We have a ideas box and an ideas challenge, and ideas are a combination of really needs and wants, so and true innovation. Mainly organizations don't have a lot of budget left, or time or support for innovation, so most of those ideas are really just needs to replace aging plant and equipment. We know the furnace needs to be replaced, right? And it comes through that channel and gets bubbled up. But I guess the opportunity is to make space for other ideas and wants, and that often is radical. It's new technologies, it's new product enhancements, it's new market opportunities, and if we don't have a formalized way of gathering that up and never losing it, keeping it, if it's not right this year, it might not be right next year, but it's in the melting pot, and someone might look at that and build on it and say, actually, that's the next big thing. So it's a good point. You've got to kind of have responsibility for it, and you've got to have a system for it, and you've got to realize that capital projects start with that idea, and you need that traceability of that insight all the way through execution. And they're not always capital projects as well, I'd hasten to add. We talk about initiatives because these days some of your biggest projects might be an S/4HANA implementation, and that might not be as much capital as OpEx too. So it's projects in general, whether they're capital or OPEX, and sometimes and often a combination of capital and OPEX projects. They start with an idea and become a funded initiative, and then are executed.
Excellent.
So
thanks, Richard. Yeah, well, let you continue on. Yeah. Thanks for that.
So I think if we imagine an ideal solution, and what are the critical attributes of a brilliant front-end loading and capital project, end-to-end solution. One of the things people often talk about, to address on those pain points is a single source of truth, right? So we only want to put the information in once, and I think that's sometimes the biggest risk of Excel is it becomes a source of truth in itself. The budget is in Excel, someone owns it, and someone has to monitor it and report against it. Yeah, so getting that budget out of Excel and into a system is often a key goal. But in addition, there's other sources of truth, around the business cases, for example. So if your promises that your sponsors are really interested in terms of what this means to my revenue line or EBIT line, if all those promises are locked away in individual spreadsheets, it's really hard to analyze them and get that portfolio impact. So one key goal here is bring it into one place, and if it's not SAP, then what? That ease of use we've spoken about, give a consistent experience for the input, the workflow, the analysis. That's it's me. It's remember me. It's my single sign-on, my preferences. I don't have to go to different places to complete the end-to-end. That really delivers that agility because it is a dynamic world. Every week there's more that AI is going to be doing, and everyone's drastically trying to reprioritize the AI initiatives and figure out what it means for every process in the organization. And when we did our capital budgets a year ago, probably didn't even have a line there for AI initiatives. Now, we're spending a lot of money on it. So we need that ability to reprioritize and measure, impact and outcome consistently. So people have traditionally relied on one or two key measures, and payback is a traditional measure, and that's the reason it's a traditional measure because those sponsors care about how quickly they're going to get a return from this investment, because their incentive scheme is related to the business outcomes. So the sooner that happens, the better, even though it might not be the most valuable initiative. So they're getting the right metrics in place to choose projects can actually have a bigger long-term impact on the successfulness of your capital portfolio. Timely and reliable analytics, we'll need that to control and monitor effectively. And security and policy compliance is another area that's emerging as being important. Inherently, I guess, spreadsheet documents are hard to control, so it becomes the preserve of the few. Only certain administrators can control the spreadsheets and give you reporting when they want to. Ideally, everyone can access anytime everything that they need to. Yeah? So it's providing instant access and accessibility and transparency within a secure environment where it's appropriately restricted to your area of business responsibility, and really enforce that consistency in the way we gather data, get the right data, so validation up front, and ensure all the right people are involved in endorsement and review and approval of capital project initiatives, and really linking up projects. Often it's the true that 3 projects are all valuable, and then the deal breaker is which ones are really aligned with where we want to go. So fixing the machine that builds traditional vehicles may not be the best investment if we know we're on the path to rapid electrification of our plant or our vehicle pool. So let's make sure our investments are taking us in the right direction, as well as being independently good value. So if we look at our solution alternatives available to us, we say we're not all on SAP, we're using a lot of Excel. We've got a problem that we need to solve. So I look at it and say there's three main choices. You can use more of SAP. SAP has a module for this, or a set of modules. It's called Enterprise Portfolio and Project Management. And that really, a subset of that is the project systems that we're familiar with. And then there's the PPM, traditional PPM on top of that, which is the portfolio and project management, which is about that, those developing those buckets and those ideas and ranking and scoring them and converting those into projects. They have a commercial project management where if you're doing projects as a core business, there's some flexibility in there with regard to that planning capability and financial or revenue accounting aspects, and managing variations with your customers. So CPM is is popular if you're doing a lot of particularly customer-facing projects. And then there's the innovation management part of that, which deals with ideas, and the project connection aspect, which is the integration to third-party project management systems. So EPPM is a very viable, complete solution. If you don't want to adopt more SAP technology, you can leverage what you have. And many of us have implemented investment management within SAP for some kind of top-down budgetary control and distribution of budgets to projects and work breakdown structure elements. It became, a method of recording data. It was never really a front-end tool, but you can make your current SAP platform more user-friendly, with a layer of Fiori on top, and more process-centric by adding workflow to that. So you can leverage what you've got today with the Fiori layer, make it more efficient, start earlier in the process. So we've got customers that we start the appropriation requests early, so they're not just for the approval, but they go into the budgeting process itself. So we do the annual business planning inside SAP with Fiori apps. Whether you use project systems or internal orders, it applies. Don't be embarrassed if you only use internal orders. Again, another customer uses, there's $1 billion of capex a year, and they control all that capex with internal orders. So it's not ideal, but it works. And you really have a choice if you're going to use Fiori on top of SAP that you have today. You can build your own, or you can buy a solution. And I'll do a bit of a plug for our IQX CapEx Fiori suite. If you don't want to extend SAP or build on SAP, you go to third-party solutions. No one buys software today or builds software. So you're then, I think, in the area of SaaS solutions, and you've got a couple of choices there around generic platforms, whether it's your SharePoint or your ServiceNow, Salesforce even, Jira, Atlassian tools. So you've got platform solutions that you can tailor to become a CapEx planning and control system. You can look at your project management suite, and they've all got an add-on for ideation and demand management and investment planning. So you can extend those, or you can look for specialized SaaS solutions. And that's really what I'm going to just introduce today is a very practical SaaS solution for the this front-end planning cycle that's really cost-effective and ready to run. SAP Analytics Cloud, I think, is a complementary and not a solution itself. So everyone says, "Oh, we'll just do that in SAC," and I think SAC's delivering a lot of capability in the forecasting and analysis piece. And I think all of these solutions will feed SAC, but SAC is not going to really do the scoring and workflow collaboration and approval and the transactional integration at the end of the process that you need. But it should be certainly in your roadmap for how you're going to present ultimately this capital information to executive stakeholders. All right. So just briefly, so PPM, in case you haven't seen it, it's really viable, I think, once you get to Fiori. In terms of usability, it does have all the questionnaires, it does do scoring, it does create your WBS elements, you can capture your key financial metrics in it, and I would certainly recommend that you have a good look at it. It covers the key things around portfolio management, which is what we're really talking about. That's the place where you're going to make the biggest impact. Yeah, project management is important. You've got to deliver it right, you've got to account for it right, and you've got to capitalize it. That's all downstream. But the place where you're going to make the most difference to most of your users and to the project outcomes is getting the right projects into the mix up front. Yeah. I guess EPM is not that popular or common in the market, and maybe some of the reasons for that, is really cost and complexity. With extending SAP, you do need to, understand the end user licensing impact of rolling out that, functionality to a whole new set of users. It's got to align with your S4HANA roadmap. I think you want to use EPPM with S4HANA. That's where it's attractive and usable. So you don't want that to be too far in the future. And if your S4HANA, roadmap is currently in design or in execution or in stabilization, will your current SAP team have the capacity to take on a new module for the foreseeable future? And are you ready for it, basically? Is it too much for you? Is another question customers ask. It's like any SAP product, it's extremely competent and comprehensive, but it does, take some skills to implement effectively. And being a consulting project costs money and it takes time. So that's option A, and we'd love to help you if you go on that path. But as an organization, we do most of our work in the other two options. The Fiori apps on top of the SAP transactions, I guess is our traditional and core expertise. But what I'm also going to be talking to you about today is an introduction to Stratex, which is our front-end portfolio management and capital budgeting solution, and give you a sense of how that might work, even if that's suitable to you. But just reminding you, I think last year this time, I did a webinar around the Fiori apps for CapEx. Just to remind everyone, we have a full suite of Fiori apps that take it all the way from budget requests to planning to CapEx approvals to project completion, analytics, forecasting, all the transactions, surface them through Fiori applications. I think what's kind of unique about our approach here is our apps are ready to run, so you're not starting with a blank sheet. It's built on a SAP certified Fiori app builder add-on, which means it's highly configurable to your specific terminology, your specific data elements, your specific workflows and integration needs, whether it's targeting project systems or internal orders. The back end, we can do that, whether you have investment management or not, we have that. Whether you're running on S4HANA or ECC, we work both ways. So if you are thinking about a Fiori layer on top of what you have, consider this. Our Fiori apps are slightly different from a traditional or standard Fiori app in that they do provide a staging layer, which is useful because if not everyone is, maybe licensed for SAP transactional processing, or you need to orchestrate the transaction only once you've got all the data. Our Fiori apps allow you to collect the information, collaborate, review, enhance the information, and only at the right point in the workflow would it actually generate the SAP transactions. So handling the workflow from the data set, thinking about a project completion, for example, before you close the project and maintain the status, before you create the fixed assets and maintain the settlement rules, let's make sure we all agree, what the split and the asset valuation is going to be, what those useful lives are, how you're going to classify them. We can go through a review past procurement and a review past finance and a review past the sponsor and make sure everyone's on the same page before we then orchestrate all the SAP transactions that flow from a single business event. So keep in mind, those differences about the configurable UI, the staging layer, the workflow, and then the orchestration at the end of the day. Happy to discuss more about the Fiori apps if that's your preferred approach. But I thought I'd just give a little bit of an introduction to Stratex Online. We're really excited about this SaaS solution because SAP says if it's not in your SAP public cloud, before you build it, in BTP or anywhere else, see if there isn't a SaaS solution that can plug in. If for whatever reason you choose not to go EPPM today, here's another solution worth considering. So Stratex is designed, for SAP customers, for the needs of what we've seen around capturing those ideas, doing the scoring and ranking, doing the portfolio selection, handling the CapEx requests, and doing your forecasting reporting, all in one kind of single source of truth, one user experience, one set of authentication controls. Highly, I guess, scalable from purchasing a laptop to a $40 million furnace for a steel mill. You can capture it through the same tool. So how does our Stratex tool work? It basically starts with an idea, and an idea starts with a conversation. And it wouldn't be a presentation if we didn't bring in a little bit of AI into the mix. So what we've introduced to the tool is, a conversation with our friendly assistant, where in the background, we're providing the assistant with a little context about the organization and about your area, the currencies you use and the locations, and around your defined strategic goals and objectives. And then through a couple of standardized prompts and responses, you can start exposing your idea and get the tool to, using generative AI to populate your business case proposal. I use it all the time now just because it writes beautiful English, and there's a lot of things I didn't think about, and it comes up with a lot of business benefits, strategic alignment. I didn't even know, wasn't even considering. So that's a little bit cute. Of course, you don't have to use it today. You can just fill in the form as we always did. But nice to start thinking about how we can incorporate AI in the whole business process flow. These initiatives, once they're approved as ideas that make sense, they'll say, I'll go put in a proposal for your capital budget for 2025. And depending on your business rules, you might extend, some of the details that you will ask us, that you will capture. So from a simple one-page form that can be, completed by an AI or on a phone, the proposal is a little bit more comprehensive. They might ask for a fiscal year breakdown, right, of the proposed costs, for example. But you're basically building on that idea, and you're based on your classification of the project, whether it's a replacement or that might be really risk-based and really just looked at what happens if we don't, versus if it's a growth and a return-based project, you're looking more at the benefits and risks of change. So portfolio proposals are fleshed out slightly, and then it becomes the area manager's job to look at all those proposals within the area and put forward, a portfolio request for inclusion of the budget. So the value we add here is that ranking and scoring mechanism based on a few key dimensions, like urgency and risk and strategic alignment. You can generate a relative score for each of your projects and use that to draw a line, or just apply your knowledge, or you can auto select, and it will optimize your portfolio request based on perhaps net present value and perhaps the overall score. Yeah, so some tooling to help you optimize your portfolio requests. From the CapEx controller's point of view, we'll summarize all those that demand up in a single currency across the world, and look for how that maps to your top-down capital plan. But manage that workflow, so you can see the status of each area's submissions. You can accept or reject their submissions and give them some commentary. You can see what this will look like in a number of ways. You might look at a Gantt chart, look over time, or a bubble chart, or if you click on the accounting view, you can actually see the impact of this proposed capital budget at an area level or at a group level, across your future years EBIT, net profit, and cash flow implications. Yeah, so that's when you're starting presenting the capital budget to your execs. You can say, well, this is what people have asked for, kind of makes sense relative to our top-down plan. We've got a few discrepancies here we're resolving, but we can visualize what this means in terms of short-term budget and resource demand and long-term return. once you have your budget, it's quite easy to build a business case, and now we're into more detailed financial analysis for final justification. So these financial analysis models can be all parameter based. So you can define various templates. All you have to do is put in the key numbers. What is your cost? What is your running cost per mile? What is your purchase date? So a few parameters can drive the calculation, I guess, on the top right hand corner here of your NPV, IRRs, and payback periods. Yeah. So just with a few inputs, you can generate that information. Behind the scenes, your models kind of link those cost flows and revenue flows over time, and then the system is calculating translations, depreciations, tax implications, leases and interest payments are all automatically accounted for by the system. But through the parameterization, you can pass through those parameters. So into my unit value here, for example, behind the unit value, I've linked that to a particular local or global parameter that can then be adjusted under various planning scenarios. Yeah. In addition to the financial analysis, a business case, will normally involve some other aspects like, risk concerns, or the flip side of risk is confidence. And you can build your own scoring models here where you ask a few questions about the impact, from a change management or technology or contractual, whatever capacity. So you build your own scoring models. We think a key aspect in prioritizing and approving these initiatives is the strategic alignment. So a standardized way in the tool to capture the top-down strategic goals and objectives, and explicitly link your initiatives to those goals and objectives as a basis for generating another score, which goes into your overall, based on your weighting, your scoring selection. This collaboration is where you're going to get the most value, is getting various individuals involved, having commentary, having attachments, having updates until you agree, that this is the best, not only idea, but the best option for that idea. And I'll show you that in a second. When it comes to approval, execs are presented something like this. They know the cost. They often ask, what's the risk of not doing this? So we have some heat map matrices that you can apply. Well, if we don't do it, we're going to expose ourselves to catastrophic operational or commercial loss. If all our competitors are doing and we're not, or if we're not complying with the statutory. So there's lots of risks for not doing things, and then there's benefits and risks for doing things and strategic alignment. So these standardized scores all kind of roll up. You can mature them over time, use them over time, but the idea is, provide the executives clarity in terms of the relative ranking of individual initiatives, and drill down all the way on how that these key financial metrics were calculated, and get right back to the source assumptions that drive them. The tool handles the workflow, delegation of authority approval dynamically based on those project classifications, whether it was budgeted or unbudgeted. Whether it was an IT project, it might have to go to the IT manager, or ESG to the chief sustainability officer, for example. So go make sure that the business case approvals involve the right people in the right sequence. Be able to capture comments and attachments on the way through. And I guess importantly from our point of view, once we've gone through that those stage gates from an idea, to a proposal, to a business case, and now it becomes a project, it integrates directly through to SAP and brings back your project IDs accordingly. Within the tool, we're able to easily maintain the forecasts. Now, how those forecasts are gathered, can be from, as a basis, the commitments that are raised in SAP. You can pre-populate the forecast. You can calculate it off system and just upload it via a spreadsheet. We can come in here and type in the forecasts, for the next few months for your suite of projects for your area of responsibility. The tool is designed to be highly configurable, so all the customization is done in the tool. There's no development. You put in your own master data. You can put in your own scoring matrices and scoring models that you apply, define your own org structure, but link it through to your company codes and cost centers, etc. in SAP in order to create those objects at the end of the day. And then quite a lot of screen customization around the standard fields, labels, help text. It's fully multilingual, so in any language, theming, screen variants, and attachment templates and variants. So depending on the project class, you can ask for specific documents to be attached at certain stages, and they access those documents is provided by the tool, so you can download the template, fill it in, and upload it. So not getting away from Excel, completely. If an Excel model for your CO2 calculations is the best way of getting them, well then give for those ESG projects the ability to download the CO2 calculation work paper and attach it and track that metric accordingly. And of course the workflow is all defined here, so uses a single sign-on, so that's not an issue. But just for information, I don't think I'm going to get time to do a live demo, but lucky I got slides. Single source analytics. For many execs, the fact that all the information is in one place, and as I say, not just the costs, but the impact analysis. So one of our customers, Fletcher Building, really relies on the impact assessment of their project portfolio for the next 10 years to look at what does that mean. Yeah, so I'm spending all this money today. What does it really mean in terms of my revenue and cost impact in future periods? And you can slice and dice that by area or investment reason or all those attributes that you accumulate. But just basically the initiative list, being able at any time to go look at your initiatives in the current year, based on your major investment reason, based on project stage, be able to drill down on these initiatives through the summary. Go look if there's more than one option. What spreadsheets don't typically give you, is that depth of analysis. Project wish lists, tend to be columns and a row. But if you have a great idea to replace something or add a new technology, there's almost invariably more than one option, right? So the ability to capture and formally assess each option that goes into a business case, is one of the best ways of getting more value, because there's always the gold option, the silver and the bronze alternative, and often bronze is good enough. Yeah. So give the execs the opportunity to pick the option that best suits the priority and relative needs in the area, and don't just say, look, we want gold, we want the gold-plated option for everything. Yeah. In some cases, you need to be a bit more practical. So that's important. I'd love to do a live demo for you, but I'm running out of time. So we'll go into the some of the business benefits from this digitalization. I think when you're thinking about doing something in this area, you need to talk about cost. Getting an automated solution, driving you through the stage-gated process, all the way from idea to project and post-implementation review, will save time and let your valuable CapEx controllers and finance people look more at the substance and do less manipulation of the data. So less processing, less rekeying. So if we can systemize the flow, we can add more value on the way through. Yeah. And critically, we get to filter out wasted investments. It only takes one or two bad projects to bring the whole thing down. So the whole goal of these tools, is to avoid the bad apples, but make sure you find and pick the low-hanging fruit. Yeah. So you don't want to have that fear that missed out on something that was a much better application of your time and money. It's also about understanding what your strategic goals are and having reliable metrics to help you optimize that portfolio, not just once a year, but on an ongoing basis. Yeah. If you see that projects are being delayed, how can you refill? How can you substitute most efficiently to continuously ensure that your project selection is most strategically aligned and most beneficial in terms of all things considered? Yeah. terms of the urgency, the risk, and the strategic alignment. It's a multidimensional consideration, and tooling helps make the right decisions. And ultimately, it's about reducing risk, yeah? Because if you think about risk explicitly, the risk of not doing as well as the risk of doing, you're going to manage your risk better and have a single source of truth, which gives you timely, reliable analytics. It means when you do spot things going at a kilter, you can react and address them. So just if you're interested in something like Stratex Online, it is about this end-to-end process management all the way through, from the idea through the portfolio selection, through the business case, through the approval and the forecasting analytics. One of its features is, there is no SAP licensing impact. It's completely standalone. In fact, got customers who don't even run SAP. So it does run, particularly in groups where not everyone in the group might yet be on SAP. You can have at least a consistent platform for this upfront process, get the right projects into the mix. It's self-sufficient, so you don't have to have, SharePoint, SAP, Microsoft, any other third-party licenses. It's a SaaS product, so there's no infrastructure costs. You can stand it up today without any IT dependency. There really aren't consulting services required. It's a for workshop, knowledge sharing work, process, and you're completely self-sufficient. There is no upfront capital expenditure. There is no cost to roll it out to hundreds of users, and it's simply the all-in cost. And the reason it's so cheap, and we think that's cheap, is because of the technology. Yeah, it is built on AWS, so it uses the whole DynamoDB, these NoSQL databases and serverless computing for very low cost of run. And because it's self-configurable, you get a lot of flexibility without any custom development. As I say, it's a full workshop deployment, and most customers will phase it in. Got a customer, Sun Chemical, global chemicals organization. They're just for this year doing their demand planning, right? So replacing the Excel wish lists. So they're just picking the very first step, getting the ideas into the system. Other organizations like Visi, did it by business unit. They first did Visi, 500 users, and they've kind of the full business case and Fiori apps at the end, and now they're rolling out to Pratt. And as I mentioned, Fletcher Building in New Zealand, they're really focusing on their large projects. Yeah, so they're the 500,000 plus projects. So you can do it. You can phase it in, by area, by department, by business user, by project type. You don't have to do it all at once, but it's all there when you need it. Yeah. So 2 minutes, and I really took all your time. So thank you very much for your patience, and not very much time for questions. If you're interested in seeing more about Stratex, or do more of a deep dive into what might work best for you in terms of those options around EPPM or Fiori or something like Stratex, please reach out. Whilst we've got 2 minutes left, any quick questions on any of that? I'm delighted to.
Thanks, Richard. I was going to say, if anyone, obviously wants to see more, they can get in touch with yourself or your team there. I've got time for one quick question. It's one we always get. It's how, where is it here? How does this solution integrate with the existing SAP solutions?
That's actually a good question. So there's a bit of an architecture diagram. You can use BTP for the integration. It's the preferred integration flow. It obviously integrates to ECC and S4HANA. So that's one integration pattern. At the end of the day, it's all API enabled. There is direct connect options available too. You can pull everything in from SAP, so you can manage the integration from SAP out, or you can run it through BTP. But yes, API enabled with deep integration back into SAP for project creation and bringing back actuals and forecasts into Stratex.
Right. Very quickly before just a quick announcement. We've got a lot of events coming up, so make sure you go on the SAUG website. We've got webinars. We've got asset management SIG on the 4th of June, a big one. We've got a physical event, SA Connect in Adelaide. So welcome to everyone's welcome to that, 19th of June. National Summit call for speakers is open, so have a look at the website for that. And Richard did mention, but if you want to find the recordings and materials from other webinars that he did, that IQX did, they are on the document directory, along with, we should be getting them, so they're all there. Also any other materials also from the Brisbane conference, thanks to everyone who attended, but our presentations will be available at the end of the week. So make sure you go log in as a member and go to the document directory. You'll find it all there. So thanks everyone for joining, really great session. Hopefully we can do more of these. Thanks Richard, Amber, and the IQX Business Solution team for their support. Thanks again everyone for joining us at this event. Hope to see you at the next event and have a good rest of the day. Thank you.